Hello teachers, and welcome to my presentation of how to effectively create a flipped lesson. My name is Pat Milani, and I'm going to walk you through this today, as well as guide you through the activities to follow up with this video when we meet. I'm going to start by reading this quote here from flippedlearning.org. The definition that they provide for flipped learning is that flipped learning is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So really with flipped learning, um, the main idea to it is that the time spent in the classroom with your students is a little bit less of the stand and deliver structured routine of notes and examples, and then you get a little bit of work time at the end. Um, we're moving away from that with the flipped learning model, and we're getting into being more of a facilitator and encouraging the critical thinking and practicing and helping with activities and getting the work time in class where the assistance and the help from you and from each other in group work settings is readily available in that environment, and it's just more collaborative. um, the idea is to get the help and the questioning done while the students are in the classroom and while you are there to guide it and assist it, um, rather than sending a student home with homework and then running into walls and questions when they get there. There are some pros and some cons. We are going to address some of the cons. We'll talk about that on the next slide, but with some of the pros you can see here, some of the things I just talked about. Um, one of the things in the middle there, lessons and content are more accessible provided there's tech access. So that's going to be kind of one of the things that teeters between a pro and a con, depending on the access that each student individually has. And then if that does turn into a con, if there's a student that um, does not have the ability or the access at home out of the classroom, how do we approach that? So there are positives, obviously, to this model that many teachers are turning to from time to time. There are also cons, but there are ways to approach those and address them and make sure that they are not taking too much away from the lesson and learning. So some of those main issues to address. Uh, the first one is going to be tech accessibility, what to do for students without readily available access at home. We're going to talk about some of those things here, um, both today and when we meet, about what happens when the student does not have access at home. One of the things that I try to do when I flip a lesson is the video itself that I release is reasonably timed. It's not too long, so it's something that if if a student does not have access or ability at home, they can come to class and they can start class by watching that video in the building, in the classroom, and not lose out on the time and opportunity to take part in the activity and work and exploration that we do in the class. Follow through is another big issue that could present itself. What to do when some students come to class unprepared to explore topics from the video. So these are your students that just flat out don't watch the video. Probably a very similar situation to students that don't go home and do their homework. Um, so this, again, kind of like the tech accessibility situation, if they're coming to class unprepared by not watching that video and not viewing the resources and material that was expected to be done beforehand, they have the beginning of class. You can direct them to do that on their own or in that group of students that, for whatever reason, is not coming to class prepared. If they're choosing not to or unable to, um, make sure that you're allowing a little bit of time in class for those students to be able to catch up with that material that they did not prepare with beforehand. And then engagement, how to avoid simply turning stand and deliver into a video. So this is going to be a few of the things that are addressed on that next slide, and really just keeping things a little bit different from time to time and really utilizing the time in class. So that engagement piece really comes to the forefront with what you do in class as the activities and the assignments after the video. So how I flip a lesson, this is really just broad strokes overview of the main outline of how my flipped lessons look from one to the next. Of course, to begin with, there's something that the student has to be doing at home to come prepared with, whether it's a video, material, maybe it's an activity that you send home, some exploration, some discovery-based learning that they have to do at home on their own time. Most of mine happen to be videos with notes. As I mentioned before, try to be reasonable with the length of the videos. The tool that I use to record when I make videos is Screencast-O-Matic, actually what I'm using right now, and it for free recordings, it has a 15-minute limit. So I actually kind of like that. It keeps me to kind of restrain myself within that time limit, that allotment of 15 minutes, and that seems reasonable for the videos and going through notes and examples to get a student prepared for coming to class. So however you choose to go about staying reasonable with that time for whatever you choose to do, sending a student home, again, whether it's activities, discovery-based stuff, videos, a set of notes, just have some amount of time that you try to keep yourself to. And then these last two are about the activities. This is where we can get a little diverse. Use the technology for activities, whether it's some practice or a quick little check-in assessment, a formative assessment coming back in, a little check-in, check-out slip. It's on paper, it's a group activity, maybe it's just a conversation. Whatever it is that they're going to come into the class being able to do directly from having utilized the material beforehand. So whatever you choose to do, switch it up. Don't make it the same situation every time. It's going to be a pretty slippery slope to go down where, let's say you make a video every time, and then you have a 3-question check-in every time when they get into class, and you have a 12-question assignment every time they get to class. It's flipping a lesson, but you're kind of starting to defeat the purpose where you're getting into that norm of everything being the same every time. While expectations and continuity and routines are good and they are necessary, you've got some wiggle room in here. Switch it up, okay? And then an assignment and assessment, again, using technology or not. I don't go necessarily every other back and forth, but from one chapter to the next, some chapters in my math class lend themselves to technology really well. Maybe we'll stick to technology activities and assessments during that chapter. Some others don't do that very well, so we'll probably have a lot of paperwork and a lot of pencil and paper, maybe a lot of discussion, a lot of group thinking. Whatever those different options are, just be cognizant of the idea to try to switch it up and try to utilize different settings within that classroom. So this is the last thing I want you guys to do before we gather and we meet. You have access to this set of slides, so you can go ahead and click on those links that I've attached, or I did email them separately to you as well. So check out these resources before we meet together to explore and create. I've got a flip lesson video of something that I did with my students. Going along with that video, I've got that set of notes, and then going along with those two pieces of material, I do have the activity that we started the next class with. So when we gather, we will address questions and get to some creating and get you guys working and get some feedback within the group. So we'll see you soon, and I'm excited to get this journey started with you.